All right, what's up, guys? We're going to be doing this hopper today. Calling this the no-brainer hopper. This thing has been a really good pattern. It just to point out a couple things about this before we tie it. A couple of cuts in the foam that help this to take on its shape and its stability in the water. It is basically all foam, other than just a little bit of dubbing down here through the, through the thorax here. 2 mil and one piece of 3 mil foam. So I just use this craft foam in a couple different colors. And then the 3 mil foam. And I'll point out where this stuff comes in and the cuts that I'll show you that make this what it is. Couple things to point out: it does have kind of this sloped front on its head, kind of like the natural hopper head shape. It also has, this contrasting lower ventral side, this belly that's, I think a trigger for the fish. It's this lighter foam and dubbing combined. And then, as you move up through the body, kind of this medium tone gray, back on the wing is kind of this darker, and then up on top is this, the most dark, contrasted against the cider. So it moves from light to dark as you move up through the body, kind of like a natural. These legs are all, one piece continuous with the head, and that's another cut. I'll show you how that works on the foam. And then of course, the spandex legs that, add durability and that natural silhouette. So I'll take this out and I'll kind of walk you through this. The hook that we settled on is this this Umpqua XT500 BN. I'll do this one in a size 8. So to get through this, like I said, I'll kind of show you the cuts that we're doing. First step is get hook in the vise, and then my thread's messed up here. Let's get that unmessed. There we go. There we go. Okay. So first step is with your, the color of the belly. This is the color of foam that is going to determine basically the color of the body and the color of the fly. We did kind of this creamy color, yellow color, and blanking on the other one. Anyways, this color that we're doing today will be kind of the cream. So I take, a piece of this cream craft foam, and we're just going to be cutting like a little 1 inch by 1 inch square. That's basically the first cut for this fly. So I take that little 1 inch by 1 inch square and I just turn it into a little hot dog bun, just kind of fold it in half, little taco here, and positioning my hook in the vise. I'll stick this foam up against the shank of the hook and then pierce through in that fold. And so what I've done is I've just basically put the foam on at a gap's distance on that hook, and then I'll just thread that around and then reposition that into the vise. So this is going to be our body. Okay, now we start the thread. We've got our foam mounted, and for thread, this is just a Vivus 6/0, just in like a contrasting color. You're only gonna see this thread on the segmentations that we put through the abdomen here. And so if it's brown, if this is like a rust, if it's dark tan, you just want it to be something that contrasts with the foam color. So we'll get the thread started here. And this thread is meant to go back to about the midway point between the barb and the hook point. Taking it back to about right there. Can go one more, okay. All right, and then bring this back forward. So because this is just all foam, we do depend a lot on super glue. So this is just some Z-Ment, brushable, and this is gonna be helping to attach the foam to the hook as well as glue the foam together. So just a thin layer here on the thread base helps to attach that, and then a thin layer on the inside of this little taco shell that we made here. And we're gonna bring this up to where that foam meets where we ended our thread at about midway between the point and the barb. And then we're just gonna bring up that taco shell and just kind of hold that tight for about 4 or 5 seconds so that that Z-Ment will set. And I position it canted upward slightly here for a reason. That's gonna create taper through the body as it goes back. Okay. So that's pretty well set. I'm just putting that pressure on there. Okay. So what we need to do is we're gonna make our first cut on the fly, and this is gonna be more like a, you know, a horizontal cut, not totally horizontal, but we're wanting to taper from thick to thin back to the back of the fly. So it's gonna be kind of a measured cut about like that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut back to the original here. We're gonna cut just kind of this taper in the back. I think this just gives it some bin appeal, makes it look more realistic. You do one cut down like that, and then one cut up, and it's kind of this V notch that you work into the back of the fly, like so. And then I just kind of round off these edges by doing a little taper cut in between, and all this does is just makes it a little bit more tapered toward the rear, so that when it's viewed from the bottom, it's more of a direct taper and a point. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna flip this around, and what we're doing is putting in the segmentation now on the rear of this body. I've got to turn this toward me to see, but all this is a few a few wraps crisscrossing on the bottom of the fly. So we're gonna put them in and just kind of measured segments here. Kind of even wraps. And usually I get about 5 wraps in here. And then I come back and I'm crisscrossing on the bottom, which I'll show you here in a minute, so that the bottom view of that fly just has crisscross segmentation up through. Okay, so we've ended that back on the shank, and so we can put this back in the vise, proper position. Okay, to add some durability here, what I do is I do a little thin layer of this Z-Ment back over the thread wraps, and that just helps to coat the thread wraps, provide some extra durability so that a tooth doesn't take that apart. And once you have that just kind of thinly coated, give that a second just to kind of set while you're doing your next cuts. Okay, so that's gonna sit and cure. So for the next piece of this fly, we're gonna be going to the next color of foam. It's just kind of this medium brown, almost like a rusty brown. And this is gonna be the wing case over the back of that fly, which gets glued on. So for this, you're just gonna be doing a cut that's kind of like a big slice of pizza cut, just kind of a wide cut, about like so. A little slice of pizza, and these pizza slice shaped pieces go over the top this way, and the width down here at the base of this triangle does help. If you cut these things too narrow, you know, if I cut this thing just to demonstrate what I'm talking about, if it's too narrow, it doesn't set the fly very well. If it's too narrow like this, it reduces the fly's balance in the water. So you want a nice wide piece like this. Okay, just touching this. This is nice and dry now, mostly dry. We're good to go. Okay, so we're gonna tie this in, and when you tie this in, you wanna kind of balance it and center it on the top of the fly here to make sure the width is about right. And so I'm just gonna trim this one end off square. So that's my piece. And we're gonna put the cement over the top. This is where we're gonna attach it. And so flip that vise over and work to just center that about right. It doesn't have to be perfect, but about right. And then I just hold that on while that cement cures. And then once that super glue is set, we're gonna take, I'm gonna trim this just a little bit shorter because it's hanging out over the eye. We're gonna take thread wraps around and just bind this on. So binding this on with some good firm thread wraps, and that just kind of puts everything together. Okay. Next, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dub out this thorax. And for dubbing, this is just super fine, and we're just choosing a color that matches our belly. So this is light Cahill for this creamy color. And I just take a good amount of this dubbing, and we're just gonna dub this on thin and work this through. I've done this with Superfine. I've done this with the Semperfli Kapok. That one has a good range of colors. Really, it's just color that I'm looking for. I'm trying to match that underbelly color just as closely as I can. And that helps that, just that view from below, the fish's view. So we're just gonna dub through this, cover up our foam and our thread wraps here with some dubbing. And your thread is contrasting, so just remember that and try to, you're covering up your thread as much as you can, so you don't have a bunch of the thread showing through, but inevitably you'll have a little bit, and that's okay. Okay, so here we are. We've got that. All right, the next step is the cut with the color of foam, the tan color foam that you're gonna be making the head and the legs out of. And so I have this just to kind of demonstrate the shape of this cut. So what I do is I take a piece of this 2 mil foam, fold it in half, and then we're making an angle cut, almost like a 45-degree angle on this. And this is gonna be, so you can see what I've done here, same thing, fold it in half. And then this 45-degree angle scissor cut with that foam produces the shape we're looking for the head and the legs. So I've got these ready to go. I'm just gonna tear this one off. I'll pre-cut these as I'm tying, and then I've just got them to go. You're trying to make this about the width of the gap of that hook. That's kind of the size of this that you're doing. So I think we're doing this fly in size 6 and size 10. And so that's the measure, the meter you're using is just the gap of that hook for the width of that cut. So this is gonna go on, mounted on the front of the fly like this, with thread wraps to secure it. Before I do that, I do like to kind of knock the point off of the head here. You can see how it's real pointy. So I'll just take a scissor and I'll just blunt it down, just taking it down a little bit. Sometimes I'll even take a little wider and just, you know, melt that tip end down, but I won't do it here for the video, it's okay. But we've just kind of rounded that edge off a little bit there. Anyways, that's ready to go. So before we tie this in, I do want to secure it on the body. This is kind of bulbous, kind of a thick spot for tie-in. So I will just take a little dab of glue and we'll go on both sides of that area where we tied in. This is gonna work quick because this is gonna set. So we're gonna set this in, hold it on tight, and then we're gonna wrap on with a nice tight thread wrap here. Okay. And that should help to secure it. And you're trying to mount this very horizontally on the, or parallel to the shank of the hook here. So we get this nice triangular shaped protrusion for the head, and then this becomes the body and then the legs, which will kick off the back too. Okay, so we need to tie in the, oh, I don't even know what to call it, like the, I guess it's the pronotum, but it's the top of the hopper here, this dark brown foam. And this is the piece of 3 mil that I use. I just use 3 mil because it does add just a touch more, another mil of foam, which I think makes it just a little bit more buoyant. So this is the only piece of 3 mil here. Down on the size 10, I do use 2 mil just to, you know, reduce the bulk. But on, this is a size 8, the 8s and the 10s, I do it with a 3 mil. So this cut is very similar to the one we did with the 10 foam. We're just gonna cut, you know, just a kind of a mini slice of pizza here, just kind of a mini triangle. So once I have that cut off, then what I'll do is I'll just, you know, with a pair of scissors, just kind of nip off the tip and make it, we're just kind of an elongated diamond shape is what this is, if you can see that. Get that side just a little more symmetrical. Okay, that's better. A little more symmetry in that cut. So just kind of an elongated diamond. So I'm just gonna mount this to the top of the fly. This is gonna be over the top. I'm just putting that thread wrap right behind where these two, where the left and right points of this diamond are. My thread wrap is just gonna go right behind that, kind of in that zone. Sink that down in. Okay, now we're gonna do our front legs. For the front legs, it's just some barred sexy floss from Montana. I just take a piece of this and I just mount this on either side, and with a couple wraps, sink that down in. Again, just looking for symmetry, trying to make these even. I think we're ready to go there. Okay, we've got our thread wraps on nice and tight. We're gonna now dub this again to cover up our thread wraps. Back to that same color of dubbing. Thin little noodle down the thread. Okay. looking good. Yep. Okay, so we're just gonna dub around this, cover up thread wraps, and then once you've got thread wraps covered, push these foam wings or foam legs forward and just move your thread back. The tie-off point is gonna be back here. So we're going to about even with the hook point. Let me just get a little bit more dubbing here. The hook point is where we're gonna tie this off. So we're just gonna advance that thread back just a little bit more. There we go. We're about at the hook point there. Okay. So you're gonna fold your foam back. These are gonna be the rear legs, the foam femurs, the kickers there. And you're gonna do a nice little tight thread wrap around that. Oh. We're gonna bring our foam carapace down, that pronotum or whatever you call it, over the top. And then lastly, we're gonna take just a cider piece of foam. This is just white. Done the cider in yellow, in orange, in pink, you know, whatever color you want your cider to be. I think for the factory ties, we're sticking with white. And I just cut a chunk that's, you can do it as white as you want. I've started going towards these wider citers here, a little bit wider than I'd done before, but just tie that in and you can just knock that off. Final with a little bit of dubbing just to cover up thread wraps. Just keep those legs out of the way. Gonna dub around this. And then we're just gonna whip finish. Sink that down nice and tight. Take off the thread. Okay, so we're done with the tying. All we have left is a little bit of last few cuts and then some glue and the rear legs. So I just cut those legs, those forward legs off, and you can still manipulate those a little bit if you need to. And then the rear leg cuts, this is where you're just making a nice long slender cut. You want them to end about the same point, obviously, so that those femurs stay about the same length. So you cut those nice and long, slender, and then just eyeball those, make sure that those legs are about the same length. Those look good. And then finally, I do like to trim this wing down since it's hanging out so long. I'll just kind of take one cut and just move down so that it ends up even with that lower taper, and I take off that little tip on the bottom here too. And that's kind of the cutting portion finished. Okay. Lastly, for the rear legs, this is just Life Flex, the regular size. I use this because it just stays a little bit straighter. It doesn't coil up so much. This is just in the copper color. I'll take a piece of that and I'll just trim that. Well, tie them in first. So this one that's closest to me, I do a right hand overhand knot. Slide that on. And with the loop facing up rather than down, I want the loop up. I'm gonna capture around that foam femur, slide that on and tighten that up. And that positions it just perfectly so that it just kind of kicks out. Trim that off, and we'll do the left or the other leg the same way. I'm gonna do a left-handed overhand knot here. Again, with the loop up on the leg. Slide that on, capture the foam, and that should kick it out perfectly. I'm gonna trim off these little nubs right now, and then we're gonna glue. Okay, back to our Z-Ment. We're gonna take just a touch of this on a bodkin. And we're just going to hit glue on those knots. That helps those to be nice and durable. Just a little touch of super glue on those knots. Like so. And then lastly, we're going to glue in these 4 legs with just a touch of glue down in the joint where we tied them on. I get a little drop and let it just sink down in through there. And holding those in position will help too. We want those nice and V'd out, those legs, just kind of V'd out so that they're just splayed out on the water. Helps with that silhouette. Get this leg in the better spot there. There we go. Okay. Same thing here. Little drop of glue on the bodkin. Drop it down in. Hold those legs in the right spot. Okay. So there's your fly, other than just needing a little bit of marking. We'll finish this up with a couple little Sharpies. So along the bottom of this fly, I take a brown Sharpie and I just hit these femurs with 1, 2, 3 little stripes. 2, 3. And then I do just some belly markings. I just do a couple of dots in this section here, and then just dots down through this abdomen just to kind of add, you know, just a little bit more marcation down through that. And then lastly, a couple of eyes. Take a black Sharpie and I hit the eye. Nice big eye on that side, nice big eye on that side. And then I do put barring down through these rear legs. You could use a barred leg like the Sexy Floss if you want to and skip this step. But I just put the barring down through the orange kickers. So we've got those barred, and then finally is just to cut those rear legs. I want these rear legs to be about equal to the body length, head to tail. So we're about there. Trim those and match up and trim there. And that looks about right. Okay, that's the fly. I'll send this over to you guys and you've got the file. You guys can start making them. Thanks much.